Dynamite and Collision recaps. Abaddon makes her return to fight Sheeta. Will Osprey takes on Zack Sabre Jr. in a great match. Speaking of great matches, Kenny Omega and MJF, many more things. Bryan Danielson's injury, and so much more to talk about. Oh, also wrestlers on Netflix with Ohio Valley Wrestling. Can't wait to get into it with the fellas. But before we do, make sure Timekeeper ring that bell.
Welcome to the And Still a Wrestling Podcast, your weekly podcast covering the latest in the world of professional wrestling.
Fellas, I'm excited to start this one off. Really something with things that we don't really talk about, which is Ohio Valley Wrestling, OVW, and wrestlers over on Netflix. So I decided to give it a try this week, and I got addicted. I started just binge watching it. It took me about 2 days, and I knocked it out. I really enjoyed seeing Al Snow again, seeing the behind the scenes, those wrestlers that are trying to make it big in what was once the kind of the feeder to WWE, now trying to make it on their own in a difficult financial situation for sure. You see everything that you don't normally see on your normal shows with WWE and AEW. It's kind of behind the scenes. You get to hear from the wrestlers, see a little bit into their lives and a little bit into what it takes to run a promotion. I hope you guys get to see it if you haven't already. But I thought it was really good. Pretty cool to see, again, Al Snow back. And again, to see the reason why I really started was because our last podcast, I think Drew mentioned Holly Hood Haley J, who is on the show, actually wrestled Sky Blue at AEW. So I thought it was pretty cool, kind of sparked my interest there. And I went from there. Drew, have you seen all the episodes yet? Or did you just know about it because of that one wrestler or what?
I knew about it. It's like, I know I'm probably lazy on this. I haven't gotten around to watching it yet. It's like, but yeah, I know of it. And, Ohio Valley is, for all intents and purposes, been around for 20 something plus years. It used to be the development for WWE for the longest time, and now I think it's worked with Impact and various other independent promotions these days.
Yeah, it turned out a guy, I don't know if you ever heard of him, his name was John Cena. Also, there's another kid, I think his name was Randy Orton, that both came out of Ohio Valley. I'm not a big reality TV program watcher, but let me ask you, how does this differ from like a Tough Enough? I'm assuming it's like a behind the scenes, grueling. Did you ever see the MTV I Want to Be a Wrestler? It's all very similar. You're just seeing it with a very little known federation, if you can even call it that. So total indie show with a former star in Al Snow that's running the scene. How does it differ from any other reality-based wrestling program that you've watched, Morgan?
Well, it's very similar. They play up some of the drama and things that maybe aren't as big in real life, but they try to play up some of the storylines there. I think one of the big differences from what you mentioned is it's not a competition or anything. They build up to a big pay-per-view event that they're doing. But I guess what I really liked is you kind of saw some of the ownership. So you saw what Al Snow has to deal with, on a weekly basis. You saw what some of the, I guess you could say, financiers of the show. There's a guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's kind of like, one of the things that I liked about it is he is a radio guy. So he talks sports radio in Kentucky, but he's also kind of a, a sponsor, if you will, funding OVW. So CEO, I guess, partner, trying to sponsor it, trying to keep it afloat with Al Snow. So I thought it was kind of cool there because, I have my radio sports stuff that I do. So I kind of felt like, a connection there with that owner of the production. But again, like you mentioned, very, very small. I think they can fit maybe 400 people in their little kind of factory looking building that they have. But again, it kind of was really cool just to see just a little bit of how a wrestling promotion is run and the different kind of issues that you run into. Al sits here and spends, which I think, Kevin, you would probably love to do if you ever had the chance, might be your dream job. But Al sits here and just thinks through in very specific detail what the feud should be, what the storyline should be, what makes sense, how to build up to certain pay-per-views, how to get the crowd more into it, how to get people to buy more tickets, what will work, what will not work. And he has some flaws himself because he's very much old school himself. So the radio producer, CEO guy, he's constantly like, we should do it this way and that way. And Al's like, no, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to do it this way, So, but it is kind of cool to see, the build up to the different storylines, but then also he builds it up and then all of a sudden someone gets injured. So one of his main heavyweight champions, after he books him a match to kind of build up a feud, he hurts his shoulder and he's going to be out for weeks. So it's just stuff like that happens. Kind of transitioning into that, have you guys seen that the issues with Bryan Danielson are actually real? He has injured his or broken his orbital bone there, and he is going to be out. How do you feel about the news of a key guy like Bryan Danielson, who was getting ready to, what we thought, get into a big feud with Okada, now kind of dying because of his injury? You think they will pick it back up, or you think it just needs to rest and let him get healthy? Also, how do you feel? How does this impact his original statement of quitting once his daughters reached a certain age?
I'd rather see, it's like at this point, I almost want to say, like, maybe you should just pick up the feud with Zack Sabre Jr. It's like, this is twice now. He's wrestled Okada and both times come out of there with an injury that puts him on the shelf for weeks, if not months. As fun as it is to see him in the ring with Okada, physically, it's not working out for him very well.
Now, did it happen with Okada or did it happen with Idolo? I don't know.
I don't know, but like, that's twice he's been in the ring with Okada and come out of there seriously hurt.
So Idolo wasn't in that match. It was Orange Cassidy and Okada. But as of 4 hours ago, we're recording this on Monday night. Sports Illustrated confirmed that Daniel Bryan is out for the rest of the year. So I never want to say I'd want to see someone get hurt, because I never do. But I would much rather see Claudio pick this feud up. And I want to see Claudio go after Orange, and I want to see Claudio go after Okada, because I think Claudio still has that extra gear, and I don't believe Danielson has it anymore. So this is a happy accident, in my opinion. I would much rather see Claudio pick this up. And yeah, it's interesting that, well, he is with Orange, but who knows whether he's going to do it with Okada or not. And you got to remember, Okada is a New Japan guy, so I don't know how often we're going to get to see Okada. Okada is more of an attraction now. So they're actually not confirming whether it was Okada or Orange Cassidy that caused it. Some are saying it was the Orange Punch, and some are saying it was the clothesline. Who knows? The bottom line is, Bryan Daniels got a fractured orbital bone. If he does come back, he'll be wearing that face guard for a while. And quite frankly, if he only had another 8 months left, I'm okay with him sunsetting at this point. He's clearly fragile. As we saw another wrestler that is fragile, and we'll get into that further when we get into the show. But I'm okay. I'm okay with what happened. It is what it is. And you have Claudio ready to go. So
I was going to just quickly add in there, it's like, I'd rather Okada and, Claudio do this thing. As far as Orange Cassidy goes, I don't want to see Claudio get in the ring. They teased it. What was it, like Battle of the Belts or something like that? How Cassidy was coming to the ring at the same time or Mox was coming to the ring, and he, what was it? Orange Cassidy lays the shoulder into Mox. It's like, that's where the feud is like, they're really playing into it. Mox and OC have a problem with each other.
So it's interesting you bring that up, because I think that putting OC over on Claudio will just heat up that feud. And I don't want Mox and Claudio and Orange to touch until it's time for their pay-per-view. I'm okay with sending out the soldiers to knock down the champion, and if they can't get the job done, then the general goes out, and the general being John Moxley. We all know that's where the money is with this feud. The problem is I don't want to see Claudio get hurt in the meantime. I like the fact that they're giving Claudio solid wins with jobbers. I mean, he crushed a guy Saturday night. I don't even think we got the guy's name. He beat him with the European uppercut. I'm okay with that. Claudio is a legit monster, and I'm fine with them building him that way. If you want to have Orange go over, do it in a way that protects Claudio, so that Claudio can continue his wrath of destruction.
Now, the Wrestle Kingdom matchup looks like it's at the beginning of the year.
Usually the second, January 2nd or 3rd, depending on when
It
the
looks like
weekend
it's going to be
falls.
January 4th this year. So if he has surgery immediately, he could maybe have a chance.
Highly doubtful.
See, I thought I saw a video of Andrade doing the basically like the Judas effect with his elbow, and I thought that's what did it. But
Nope. That was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. So I'm a little bit behind on that. So I did see the orange punch, and then I did see Okada, and then he kind of rolled out to the outside. So are you thinking, is there a possibility that Claudio could pick it up and actually fight at Wrestle Kingdom, or is that not possible really?
I think that they should put that match off if that's the case. I don't think Claudio needs to go to New Japan to continue this feud. It was obviously a Danielson feud, and with Danielson hurt, you just have him fight over here. So clearly, we're getting Cassidy and Claudio on Wednesday night, so that's pretty straightforward. If Okada slipped into obscurity and didn't come back again into AEW until Danielson was back, that would work too. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense for Claudio to go after Okada, but if you had that program and Okada is under contract for a couple of matches, then sure, go ahead and do it. But Claudio and Orange make immediate sense. The match between Claudio and Okada doesn't make as much sense, in my opinion.
So we can transition over into one match that you had mentioned as homework for this week. Some of us may have done our homework. Some of us may have not. Kevin, you want to tell us a little bit about the match?
First of all, shout out to my friend Chris, who did his homework and told me that his life is better now that he watched that match. So shout out to Chris. Yeah. So now that you watch that match, I want you to understand what I mean by another gear and guys that are in their prime and guys that are just out of their prime. They still have that ability, and you get flashes of that, but they don't have that full-time sixth gear, so to speak. And I think that match was a prime example. Will Osprey versus Zack Sabre Jr. was a 5.5-star match per what the hell's the guy? The Dave Meltzer, and then the Speedball Mike Bailey Will Osprey match was 5.25 stars. But those are 3 guys, 2 matches that showed you what another gear is, and I think that they are the upper echelon of the business right now. But it was your homework, so you guys tell me what you think.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned it's like what you were talking about there. It's like I want to bring it back to the question you asked us, last week about, which was when I watched it, I was like, this is a good match. It's a great match, at that. It's like, but it plays into that whole thing. I was thinking to myself when I was watching it, I was like, this is, like I said, this is exactly what Kevin said he enjoys in pro wrestling, like this type of work rate, this type of thing. Whereas with me, I truly enjoyed it, but at the same time, I'm like, story wise, it's just putting 2 of the best guys up in the thing. But it like I said, it had more of a UFC real fight feel to it, as opposed to like the sports entertainment pro wrestling side of it. And I, like I said, don't have a problem with that. I can respect that. Great match. Morgan?
When I'm looking at some of the highlights, one thing that I see, and I haven't seen a ton of Zack Sabre Jr. I don't know how, maybe one hand on Will Osprey, what I've seen, but it's crazy to me, all the different positions and areas of the ring where he can transition into some sort of submission. And it doesn't turn into a like, I mean, it has ebbs and flows, natural ebbs and flows, I think, but it doesn't turn into like boring at all. You know, at any given spot they could do something absolutely nuts, and it goes for both the guys. And another thing is just really from, like I talked about, watching the Netflix thing, it is amazing to see two guys for 30 minutes seemingly know each other like they're twins, like they've been practicing for months. And I don't know how long they practiced or if they even did, but just the fact that they were able to transition into many different moves off the top rope, on the apron, outside the ring, you know, into different submission moves, and then get right back up, and the other guy do 2 or 3 counters, the other guy do 2 or 3 counters, and then they're very seamless. Not get injured, you know, like you said. I mean, just athletes at the top of their form by far.
That was
And
their 6th match together,
oh,
and I've watched it twice. Did you ever see them talk?
and that's another thing. I don't really notice that
Oh.
at all. And to be honest with you, Kevin, it makes no sense to me how two wrestlers can go that long and do that many different variations of moves. I mean, people that just, to me, that just showcases their intelligence, their wrestling intelligence. Because I mean, you see these wrestlers out there that only know 5 moves, you know, and these guys are sitting here doing, it seems like, an uncountable amount of moves for 30 minutes.
Actually, wasn't John Cena's tagline the 5 moves of doom?
Yes.
Right.
It was also for
Yeah.
Hogan, Kevin Nash. It's
Yeah.
like it's been a couple of
I
those
mean,
guys.
those
Hey,
guys
well-
don't hold a candle to these guys. And I just hope that they can get what they deserve as far as their notoriety. I mean, these guys, Roman Reigns doesn't even know, they've forgotten more moves than Roman Reigns even knows, you know?
But that product exists, and you're never going to see a Will Osprey or a Zack Sabre Jr. in the position that I don't know, MJF or Roman Reigns is in. It's a it speaks to a lower demographic as far as people that enjoy that, and I happen to be one of those people. So the product is out there. There's always something out there for everyone, and that is the type of product that I enjoy, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it as well.
I enjoyed it. But this reminds me too, because it's like, as long as we're on the subject of this, I have to ask this question, and for reasons at the very least, we can go back and listen to this podcast later to talk, you know, for reference point on this one. But over the week, it did come out that WWE is very interested in signing Will Osprey. It's like, how are you guys on the idea that he might be WWE bound instead of somewhere else?
So he signed on with Barry Bloom, who represents almost all of the elite. He represents the Young Bucks. He represents Hangman Adam Page. He represents Kenny Omega. All of his friends are in. Well, many of his friends are in AEW. And I would think that he would be able to have his eyes opened and look to see what WWE does to people who have made their names elsewhere, with the exception of Cody, which is a huge exception. I would hope that he uses WWE's as leverage, but I don't see him going there. But that's my opinion.
I would definitely. I was talking to my coworkers about this, and I kind of agree with them on this one too. That should he sign with WWE, I can almost guarantee you the first thing WWE is going to do is kind of make him slow down.
They're going to repackage him. Maybe we could get a replay of the 2016 Classic between Ricochet and Will Ospreay that caused Vader to come out of retirement. God, rest his soul.
I don't remember that one. You want to explain that one?
Yeah, it was when they did the mirrored moves like a video game. One would do a flip, the other would do a flip, and they went back and forth for like the first 7 minutes of the match. It was 100% mirrored. And then they stopped. It was in New Japan. It was Ricochet versus Will Ospreay, and that caused Vader to have an aneurysm and go off, and that's why Vader wound up fighting both of those guys. Like in 2017, I think it was. So, yeah, that was, if again, I won't give you homework, but if you have some spare time, go watch Will Osprey versus Ricochet at New Japan in 2016. And for the first 7 minutes, it was like a video game. It was like you were watching Street Fighter, and Ken and Ryu were just doing the exact same moves against each other. It was
where they sit there and just Hadouken each other for 3
yes,
minutes.
yes, exactly what it was like. Yep. So, but all in all, it was a good week of wrestling. I mean, Dynamite was a good show. Collision was an absolute banger, but we're gonna get into that.
Speaking of Dynamite, let's start off there first. And one other wrestler, at least the key wrestler, a top guy, not top guys, but a top guy for AEW in MJF. He has the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and he won again against Juice Robinson, and I thought it was a pretty good match. But it kind of shows me, especially with what we'll talk about in Collision. Let's just talk about it as a whole. MJF's 2 wins this week, one over Juice Robinson to keep the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and then also to beat Kenny Omega, my favorite wrestler, albeit with interference from Don Callis. I think that, and I think maybe, Kevin, you mentioned this in our text message, it really does kind of solidify that they are putting their eggs in the MJF basket. You know, they're not taking anything away from him. They're not, they don't have any seemingly indication that 2024 is the end. They're building him up even more into his role as being the man in the world title picture for AEW.
You want me to go? It's like, it was a good week for MJF. It really was. Like I said, you had a great match with Juice Robinson. That was fantastic. And just an absolute, probably the highlight match in wrestling of the week here with MJF and Kenny Omega. Some of the fun, like, backstage stuff with MJF was great. I enjoyed the whole thing too, where, like, before the Kenny Omega match, where he, and Collision tries to sneak his way to the front, past the ringside barrier to snag the AEW championship back from him.
Yeah.
But it's like he was a highlight of of AEW this week. It was a really strong week for him. You can't. It's like and like you said, he's basically being put on the pedestal as he's the guy. I mean, he's the most important guy on this roster right now. Now, as far as the bidding war of 2024, as he puts it, goes, he actually kind of addressed that in a, once the cameras went off, after Collision, where he had a, conversation in the ring about it with Kenny Omega, and I'm sure there's some truth to it, and others, they're just pumping up the crowd. But also, speaking of that, your favorite wrestler, Kenny Omega, really, after the show was over, took to the mic and really put over MJF and said, I was always wondering, it's like, who would take my place? And he said, I kind of feel like if the end is near for Kenny Omega, if guys like MJF are here, we're going to be all right.
So when this episode hits, it's November 1st, and I'm going to use this as the record to say that there will be no bidding war of 2024 that is real, because it's all storyline. I fully believe that MJF re-signed 6 months ago or 4 months ago when he returned, because if he didn't, and I'm going to use MJF's line, Tony Khan is a fucking mark and an idiot for putting him this much shine on MJF just to lose him to the WWE next year. And I don't think that's true. I think Tony knows what he's doing, and there is zero way that this man is not under contract through at least 2025, if not further. I enjoy MJF's work. There was talk in the past that he was a great promo, but he was an okay wrestler. I do not believe that. I think he is a fantastic promo and a very good wrestler. He proved that this week with that match with Kenny Omega. Those guys went, I think it was 28, 29 minutes. He, in my opinion, outshined Kenny Omega on numerous occasions. Kenny took about 3 minutes to come up to speed to the Kenny Omega we know in that match, including him even misstepping walking into the ring where he knocked his wing off and just froze for like 25 seconds, which I thought was interesting. But in that
was a thing. You were supposed that was intentional. The thing fell off. He's the one-winged angel.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. Yep, you might be a fucking mark as well.
Absolutely.
I think that what they're doing with MJF is good, but it's a little too much. What about the rest of the business? What about your tag teams? What about the fact that we have the Young Bucks who are guaranteed a title shot, yet we have no mention of that lately? You have 4 people in who do we have? We have Wardlow, we have Switchblade Jay White, we have Samoa Joe, we have um, uh, we think Adam Cole, but we're not sure. And I'm missing somebody who's all vying for MJF. The fact that Wardlow is looking at a TV that's not even plugged in, just staring at a black screen, thinking about what he's going to do. They're putting a little too much emphasis on the MJF storyline, giving him 38 minutes is what Wednesday night was it not? 38-minute intro. His whole segment in the beginning was 38 minutes of a 2-hour show, and that 2-hour show was really an hour and 41 minutes, give or take. I enjoy it. I just think we're giving a little too much to MJF. And what is the bottom line goal here? Are we turning him face? Are we
Yes.
not turning him face? Well, are we?
I think he is a face. I
Is he
think
a
he's a baby
face or are we humanizing him?
Both?
I think they're moving him away from straight up heel. I do feel like that. One thing I did notice, and I don't know if you guys caught this, but when he went into the kangaroo kick, JR publicly mentioned that on the air that he didn't like it. And
JR often speaks what he feels. He calls the referees out, which we'll get into about Saturday night and the MJF Kenny match. But yeah,
I do
he
feel
has no
like that
filter. He has no filter.
MJF, my worry about MJF is that is a little bit of a goofy move. And I'm sure guys like JR don't like that, don't like the top, your title, your world title holder to have a kind of a goofy move, a clown move, if you will. I mean, it is a gimmicky move for sure. It's not serious. And so when you're talking about pro wrestling and he does that and you're not entertainment, which we know they are, but when you act like you're not entertainment and you're pro wrestling and you're taking it serious and then you do the kangaroo kick. Another thing that I was surprised to see that there wasn't any mention from TBS or TNT or any of their entities about how he acted in between spots with Kenny Omega. There were 2 situations. One where he made the masturbation sign and jerk off thing, and then there was another where he basically humped Kenny Omega in the on the top rope. I thought that was why he would never work at WWE. Honestly, I mean, he's not going to be a guy. To me, that kind of stuff, it might be fun for the 20-year-olds, but when you want to be the face of an organization doing that kind of stuff, you're going to win a lot of points with the frat boys, but you're not going to win a lot of points with a bigger audience that you want to get to acting like that. So it does seem like he still has a lot of growing to do. And I know he's young, but he's not the Make-A-Wish guy. You know what I mean?
Morgan, everything you just mentioned was 1999 WWE. It's like,
which times have changed.
I know they have, but I'm sitting there like, that's the Attitude Era that everybody harkens back to.
Well,
I was impressed how we can turn the foul language on and off. So cameras go off, they do that from the heart, or at least we think it's from the heart. It may have been slightly scripted, the conversation between Kenny and MJF after the cameras went off, but with his third word was, man, fuck, it's hard to wrestle this much. I never thought I'd be wrestling this much in my life. He dropped an F-bomb in the third word when the cameras were off. I find it very impressive for people to be able to do that. People on TV, people in radio, professional wrestlers, how in front of the camera that light's on, there's no curse words. As soon as that light's off, it's gutter mouth. But let me ask you, I want to go back to Kenny being overexposed. I'm sorry, MJF being overexposed. We saw MJF open up the show for 38 minutes on Wednesday night. We saw MJF have a 35-minute match with Kenny Omega on Saturday night, plus a small camera scene where he tried to steal the belt back. We're going to see MJF Wednesday night team up with 3 additional people. You're going to see you're going to see MJF on Saturday night. You're seeing MJF every 3 days. When MJF came out once a month to address the crowd, how excited were you to know that MJF is going to come out and cut a scathing promo tonight, and then we're not going to see him for 3 weeks? I like that better than him being overexposed. He's pulling double duty at the pay-per-view again. Now, I will say, if he gets beat by the Guns, I'm okay with that. Because if Cole is really hurt and they don't strip the belts, I do not buy into the fact that he's defending these belts by himself against notable teams. Now, a couple of episodes ago, I mentioned the Guns weren't ready for the belts, and I still believe that. But if you're looking for an easy out to take that belt off of MJF and theoretically Cole, put it on the Guns and then come out with an angle after the fact. I think if there's going to be a time, it's going to be the pre-show that MJF drops the straps to the Guns. But again, he's wrestling twice. He's wrestling on the free show and he's wrestling in the main event. And you just can't keep doing that against semi-credible teams. We're building the Guns as part of the Golden Elite, right? Not the I'm sorry, the
Bullet Club Gold.
Bullet Club Gold. You can't beat these guys with one guy. You're just going to bury the angle you've been trying to build. So
I agree.
if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen at this pay-per-view, and I think it's time. If he truly hurt and Cole is not coming back, it's time to take the strap off.
I think that when you get into, here's my thing. I do agree with you, Kevin. I do feel like that they originally were doing that with their champions. You know, I actually complained about it months ago about how at your house where I was like, you never see, they get the belt, you never see them. So I didn't want the Young Bucks to ever get a belt because I didn't want them to disappear. Right. And, but there was the storyline involved with that. There was giving you some of that separation, you know, to where you miss them a little bit more, right? You're more excited when they come back. I'll throw this out there. At where they're at with their viewership level, I can see why they're putting guys like Kenny Omega and MJF on Collision as the main event for 30 minutes because they need it. They need it. They can't afford to have the guys that draw sitting there 3-4 weeks at a time, not being seen.
To that point, Dynamite did its lowest number in the last year with under 700,000 views on Wednesday night, and that had Ric Flair on it.
Yeah, wow.
It was up against baseball and basketball, from what I understand. But they purposely, and it's I believe
World Series, if anything.
Yeah. It came out that they're looking to shop Collision around. It may not necessarily stay on TBS, and they're trying to draw some huge numbers on Saturday nights. So having a pay-per-view quality match and giving us a clean finish and giving us a legit good match bodes well for them. I believe they did close to 900,000 on Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken. You might want to check me on that, but I get why they did. Yeah, I get why they did it. Yeah, it was bigger than Dynamite. I'll look it up real quick. You guys fill some time here.
Yeah, I want you to for sure tell me that. But Drew, while he's looking that up, I did want to ask you thoughts on, you know, where this is possibly going. Cause as Kevin mentioned, MJF has so many things going on at once right now, so many different angles, which I actually like, don't get me wrong, but where is this Roderick Strong and the Kingdom angle going with him? If anything, and is the Acclaimed connection with him going anywhere, you know, more than just getting through the match with the Bullet Club Gold?
You know, it's like with the thing with the Kingdom, it's like I just feel like this is more subtle hints that it's like I don't think Adam Cole is actually hurt. This, you know, if Adam Cole was hurt, I would assume they handle it like every other company does, where they drop the angle. It's like it just goes on hiatus, and that's the end of that. It's like, but the fact that we're continuing this, the fact that we're keep finding ways to point, like with the Kingdom assisting him, and just finding little nitpicky things to keep tying Adam Cole, even when he's not here, to this angle, leads me to believe it's like he might be the guy that's under the Devil's Mask. Speaking of the Claim, that's my like dark horse pick for who might be under the Devil Mask. As I thought about it the other day, like, what if it's Max Caster under there? But it's like I don't know if they would be up for like because if it turned out to be him, this would be the start of like some big push for him. And I was like, I don't know if they'd be up for doing that right now. The Acclaimed is kind of like at this point AEW's New Day, where it's like you keep these guys together and they keep the crowd happy.
So I picked a bad week to start smoking crack. The number from Saturday night was 440,000. So I don't know where I got that reference. Listen, you mentioned the Kingdom. Shout out to my boy Matt Taven from Derry, New Hampshire. Way to go, bro. Yeah, I really think, and I've said this is the third or fourth show I've said this now. I don't think Cole was hurt. As far as who's under the Devil Mask, I don't even think Tony has decided who that's going to be yet. That has really kind of cooled off. When have we seen it again other than that initial time where they jumped Jay White?
It showed up like a week or two ago.
Well, it showed up this week. He at the end of the thing, he like turned his head. The devil in the mask turned his head, and it was like a glitch.
Yeah, like I want to say it was when Juice Robinson won the battle, the thing for, the chance to fight MJF. All of a sudden, he appears back on the screen, staring at him in like a quick glitch, which Jay White immediately was spooked by. So yeah, they're still referencing it. It's still a thing. That's why I'm like, okay, well, I definitely need to go back to the well and try to figure out who is underneath the mask. And I've heard anything from Adam Cole to, like I said, my guess is just, and I know it's probably not Max Caster, but I'm throwing it out there. I've heard even CM Punk like being the ultimate work, and stuff like that. But that's not going to happen. He's going to be at Survivor Series, in about a couple of weeks from now.
Actually, he's going to be on an MMA pay-per-view the night before. I think it's November 16th, the night before Full Gear. He's going to be on commentary for the MMA company that he works with. I really, I'm not sure that it's been decided as to who's under the Devil Mask, and I'm okay with that because it's not going to leak. I don't want to know before I know. You know what I mean? But I want to go back to Ric Flair showing up Wednesday night, and I'm going to do my Barry Horowitz. I think I told you guys during the day the big surprise is the Black Scorpion, which I don't think Morgan understood, but I know, Andrew, you knew who that was.
Yep.
So Morgan, back in the day, Sting had an opponent called the Black Scorpion, which was Ric Flair under a full bodysuit and mask, and they had Ole Anderson, I think it was, do the Black Scorpion voice. So Sting didn't know that it was Ric Flair until he unmasked him. But yeah, I had a really good feeling it was either going to be Hogan or Ric Flair, and I just had a hunch it was going to be Ric Flair. I was happy to see Rick. Unfortunately, I don't want to see any more Rick. I've seen him. I hope that he is not Sting's final opponent. I believe it was Bro who said it is absolutely fitting that Ric Flair fucking dies in the ring fighting Sting, and I don't want to see that happen.
You're not on Twitter or X or whatever it is as much, but I'm pretty sure I think even Ric Flair even argued that with Russo saying, oh yeah, that's my game plan. I want to die in the ring. And I'm like, well, at least he's being open about it now. But
yeah, I don't want to see that.
Like, he's a liability now he's in his 70s and Tony Khan can't let this guy jump in the ring. It's like he had his time, but like at the age of 71, 72, he's not that guy anymore.
He was a liability in TNA, and that was 12 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that.
The man faked a heart attack in WCW. I mean, he's got a history. I don't want to see it.
I think you guys are worried about nothing. I really do. I don't think he's going to wrestle at all.
No, I don't think he is either. I think it's like, I think even if he doesn't know any better, Tony Khan and Tony Khan's lawyers know better than to let that dude do that. And it's like,
What'd you think about Christian Cage again? My man out there just hitting bangers over there, just one-liners like it's nothing, even on old Ric Flair. I thought it was great.
One of the best heels in the game right now. That's all I can say.
And listen, he's got good taste. He's trying to hit Nick Wayne's mom. So, you know.
And there's the obligatory Nick Wayne thing. Good on you, man. Keep the streak going.
Kevin's got a streak of doing that longer than MJF's time with the belt, I think.
Yeah, speaking of, he is going to eclipse Kenny Omega as of Tuesday, I believe, tomorrow. He will have tied Kenny Omega with November 1st being the go-ahead, if I'm not mistaken. Is it 264 days? 263 days, I think it is? Whatever it is, he will have eclipsed Kenny Omega, but come Wednesday night as the champion, the longest-running AEW heavyweight champion in history. Granted, it's only a 3-year history, but still it's history.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about another match from Wednesday night that I'm interested from you guys, and that is Hook and Rob Van Dam versus Dark Order's John Silver and Alex Reynolds. Thoughts on those guys? I mean, I know Hook is young. He's nowhere on the level of the guys we mentioned earlier, but thoughts on that match?
Bringing out all the legends this past Wednesday. And they're in Philly. So, when you're in Philly, RVD is going to get a, pretty hot reaction there. Side note on that, too, it's like it was a decent match. I enjoyed it, but it's like, and if you were all paying attention, this is really one of the first times that, like, even Hook couldn't, keep a straight face and can, you could see the excitement and, and enthusiasm on him that, like, man, I'm getting to, work with RVD here. Like, he normally has a pretty stoic look to it, and even he couldn't contain his excitement on this one.
Until you mentioned that match, I had forgot it even happened. Yeah. So Hook had a match with Uncle Rob, and it was a match. And, Rob hasn't lost too much of a step.
Really hasn't.
If you use him in these short, use these in short bursts and mediocre opponents that can help him deliver some of his moves, it's okay. I mean, like you said, they're in Philadelphia, so they did it for that crowd. But it was forgettable in my opinion. I think Taz is having a great time seeing his kid in there with somebody he used to, drive it up and down the road all over the country with. So I think it's a very feel good moment for Taz. But again, I don't put much stock into Hook being much of anything for at least another 3 to 5 years if he actually becomes anything.
Yeah, I don't know how old he is right now. I know he's pretty young, but as we mentioned, there are people out there that are young talent that seem to be a little bit more ready than he is. I get he kind of has a different style of wrestling, but he's got some work to do for sure. But he's getting in there, I think, at the right times. He's not getting in over his head with the matches that they put him in. So for the most part, I feel like he's been booked pretty good.
So Hook is 24, MJF is 27.
Right.
As a comparison.
Okay.
And MJF has basically been involved for at least 3 years. Like
I think he's 8 years in as a pro.
So I mean like on AEW TV, he's been in front of us for quite some time as like one of the pillars, as they say.
Yeah, wasn't him and Sammy Guevara the first match ever to air on AEW? I believe it was.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is,
he's grown up around us.
Hook is not there yet, basically.
That's
Hook's
right.
still got a long way to go.
Yep.
Going back to the belts and specifically like the title belt, but this time on the women's side of things for Halloween, it's Monday.
Sorry. Did you say women things?
Yeah, on the women's side of things. It's the day before Halloween, October 31st. Saturday had actually a nod to one of the earlier matches in AEW, which is Hikaru Shida versus Abaddon. And you remember back in the day, Shida was like terrified of her, and I believe lost the match or ran away or something happened. I can't exactly remember, but it was like she was really terrified of Abaddon then and did not know how to beat her, did not know how to handle or even fight her. This time around, it was a themed match, a Halloween themed match, which I thought was, okay. What are your thoughts? Shida was able to get the win. Of course, she's still the the world champ there on the women's side. What were your thoughts on that match and specifically the Halloween theme?
Okay, first of all, they were both dressing up for Halloween. It's like, and stuff. So, Morgan, you being younger one, it's like, what did you catch the themes? It's like, or who they were dressed up as?
Wasn't
Sheeta was in a dress, a red dress.
Yeah, wasn't she in a red dress? Which is that Street Fighter?
No, that's Ada Wong from Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil, okay.
And Abaddon was totally Spawn.
Dude, your geek is showing. Put it away.
I did know. Yeah, her face paint was like Spawn.
Yeah, she was Spawn. It's like, but it was a throwaway match. It's fine. It's like, I definitely argue the point that I think Abaddon deserves to be used more regularly. She's different. She's somebody that I would bring out more. It's like from time to time in the sense of like, she stands out from everybody else. For that matter, it's like when I sat there and thought about it, it's like, I would totally go for Abaddon Swit in a feud with Timeless Tony Storm, and then playing off Abaddon as like one of those 1940s horror villains.
So I have a bit of a problem with Abaddon. Shocker, right? So
who don't you have a problem with in this division?
She became All Elite in June of 2022, and she's been under contract since June of 2022. Her last match prior to Friday night's taped match was October 29th of 2021, in which she broke her tailbone. In that time, she was able to rehab her tailbone. She was able to drop a significant amount of weight, and she was in much better shape when she wrestled on both Friday night and Saturday night this week. But how do you justify keeping someone under contract that you only use for the month of October and you use her in less than a half dozen matches for a year?
Yeah, and to the defense on that one, I argue the point is like she should be used a lot more. It's like I don't.
So
think
how does she differ
in that sense?
How does she differ from Danhausen?
She does actually. The two of them together is kind of fun. I always thought it was funny that they played that off. I can't remember if it was Ring of Honor or one of those where like Danhausen's the only one who understands her.
So yes, and you kind of got where I'm going. If you're going to have Abaddon under contract, you need to find a way to use her. And I think pairing her up in some type of faction with Danhausen, and I think you could throw Colt Cabana in there because Colt is a comedy wrestler. I think you could do something with them. But I have concern, again, going back to Tony's businessman acumen and the fact that he has somebody under contract who, and I'm guessing here, has wrestled less than 25 times in 3 years.
Yeah, I can't argue that. They need to utilize her more.
And she's not terrible. I mean, she's a good hand. And I know that's the kiss of death in professional wrestling, but she's an average female wrestler in my opinion. But she needs to somehow get a foothold and become somebody that we see monthly, bi-monthly, but more than in the month of November.
October. On that.
Yeah. So
no arguments on that.
Yeah, I thought the match was forgettable. His spot with the pumpkin, I'll tell you guys a funny story. Years ago, ECW, they used to invite you to bring your own weapons, and I actually brought a full-size pumpkin in which Sandman took and tried to smash over Tommy Dreamer's head, but they realized it was a real pumpkin, and he actually smashed it on the ring instead of Tommy's head. And in hindsight, it's much better because he probably would have seriously hurt Tommy, but I wasn't front row that night. I was maybe fifth row. We actually relayed the pumpkin over the rows to get it to Sandman, and they tossed it in the ring. Sandman caught it, and then he fake missed Tommy and smashed the pumpkin in the ring. But that was at Wonderland Racetrack in Seekonk, Massachusetts in like 95. But yeah, that was a definite memory. I brought a full-size pumpkin in an ECW match. Good times. Good times, boys. Thanks for the memories.
Good times.
Well, fellas, I'm trying to look and see what other big things happened with Collision. The interesting thing with Collision, as I wanted to bring this up during the podcast, was, were you okay with the kind of overall nature of the show itself. I mean, I felt like the crowd's energy, even though, you know, they've been struggling with the live crowd sizes, I felt like the crowd's energy was good. It was kind of interesting with the diversity of matches where you had some matches that were just absolute squash. You almost had like more
Every
squashes
other.
than I remember.
Yeah. Every other was a headliner squash, headliner squash.
Yeah.
One thing to note, being from New England, that Uncasville Pavilion, which is at Mohegan Sun, is about 45 minutes away from Stamford, Connecticut. It's not very far at all. So they're kind of in WWE's backyard. And I think I told you that's a 10,000 person arena, and they sold just about 3,500 tickets. Concerning, again, concerning. I thought it was a good show, but you know what took me out of the Kenny Omega MJF match? The fact that you pull a table out and put him through the table right in full view of the referee, and the referee does nothing. It was not a no disqualification, no holds barred. It was just an average match, and literally, as the referee watches, they go through the table. How do you explain that? You
Was
can't.
it Rick Knox?
No, it was not Rick Knox. It was
So what
the
you're
guy.
saying is they're
It
not
was
sticking to the traditional rules of a regular match. They're not supposed to
And-
use a table.
and if MJF, I'm sorry, if JR was out there, he would have obliterated it because you making the referees look bad.
He was out there for that match, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the one that was
Yeah, he
saying
was
he
out there.
hated the donkey kick or the kangaroo kick.
Okay, all right then.
He
Then
wasn't,
it-
but to your point, Kevin, he really kind of stopped talking during that match.
Gotta wonder. He just made the referee look bad.
Because
Say it
it's
again?
like they had the goof on there where it's like, and I don't think anything of it with JR anymore, where it's like he 1 minute called it the AEW World Championship and then another minute slipped and called it the AWA World Championship. But you know, that man's worked for a lot of companies and
Yeah.
he's old. It's like there's bound to be
Yeah.
a slip of the tongue. I don't blame him for any of that.
Hey, let me go off on a tangent here. I don't know if either of you guys remember. Do you remember Vlad, the super fan from WWE days back in the
Yep.
Raw early days? He used to
Yeah,
sit
he's got
front
his
row
own
of the
thing on
tank.
the network now, doesn't he?
Yes. Did you know he's got full blown Parkinson's and can barely speak now?
No.
Yeah, they were talking about it today on Busted Open, and I thought that was very interesting. But yes,
Wow.
the back of the day, the rumor was that was Vince's personal trainer, that was Vince's limo driver. He was no one but a fan from New York. He used to spend his money to buy those front row seats and was at every major show. Similar to how the green T-shirt guy does it now. Same concept, but that's the first WWE produced show that is not about someone under contract to them or about the wrestling industry. He is the first super fan. So shout out to Vlad. Good job, man.
By the way, I've heard it's like again, it's on my things to watch list, but I've heard great things so far. Like it's actually a fun watch.
I heard it's a super tearjerker. All three guys said they cried, including Bully.
Hmm.
So, yep, might be something you want to watch alone.
There's a few things that I know that they'll be good to watch alone this week.
Oh no.
Speaking
You
of
can't
clips
go.
of football,
You can't go.
speaking
You
of
can't
college
go to those
football,
sites anymore. Your wife blocked those sites.
I was sitting there like, oh god, that's a terrible setup.
Hey, can we
I was talking about college football and my team not playing well. That's what I was talking about.
can we quickly run down the AEW injuries for 2022 late and then into 2023? I'll just quickly run them down just to
You
remind
have a list
everyone.
of this?
I do.
Oh boy. Okay. All right.
I've got a list. It's not laminated like Dave LaGrega, but it is a list. So we have so starting off in December of 2022, we have Paige Van Zant, who isn't even with the company anymore. She broke 3 bones in her foot. Jamie
Why
Hayter.
are
Wait a
we
minute,
still
wait a minute, wait a
talking
minute,
about
wait a minute.
her?
Paige is gone.
She
Dude,
hasn't
she's
been with
been
them.
gone forever.
Yeah, it's been over a year. Yep.
I,
Is she
I
one of those?
knew I knew
Is she
that,
one
but
of
I
those
didn't
sites
need
that
you
you
to
go
tell
to
me.
when by yourself?
Why
Jamie
are we-
Hayter. Jamie Hayter has several injuries. She's expected back in March of 2024.
Oh, we can't get her back fast enough. It's like
She's been out a year and a half. Bandito broke his wrist June of this year. No return date.
Bandito. Oh man.
Bandito. Roderick Strong. It's a storyline injury. He's not really hurt.
yep. Bullshit.
Mark Briscoe. Unknown injury, but he came back on Ring of Honor this week, Ring of Honor TV, so he's back. Pac was an unknown injury. He has no return date. Adam Cole, obviously in storyline, supposedly underwent surgery in October of this year. Sammy Guevara is concussion protocol, but it has been a full month the day that this episode drops that he's been under the concussion protocol. Obviously, Bryan Danielson broke his orbital bone. He's out indefinitely. Thunder Rosa is cleared to go. Supposedly, there is no creative for her, which I find, again, very disturbing. If you have somebody like Thunder Rosa and she's ready to go, how do you not have her even just showing up and saying, "Hey, I'm coming back. Remember me," and doing something?
Real quick, if I may jump in on that, it's like, we don't have anything for her creative right now. Really? Not for the person who was AEW Women's Champion and had to drop the belt. She never lost the title. She was never pinned, never submitted. She was forced due to injury to give up the belt. There's your angle. Start there.
So I did see something today, and take it with a grain of salt, but in the back of my head, it's concerning me. Apparently, we're starting to see cracks in AEW's creative as far as people getting to the show and not knowing what they're doing, not knowing long term where their position is in the company, things being rewritten and or scheduled the day that you show up at the building. This is very reminiscent of WWE a year and a half ago, in which Vince would just completely throw the script away, and 10 minutes before you go out, you don't know who you're fighting.
I was going to
So
say, this is more reminiscent to me of World Championship Wrestling, where people show up for work and have absolutely no idea if they're actually supposed to be on the card or not. But regardless, WCW paid the money to get those guys there, even whether they're going to use them or not.
Let me ask you something. Do you, as a wrestler, you guys know better than me, so you get
I'm a
there,
wrestler?
you have nothing to do. You just sit there.
Catering.
catering.
You
It's
Yeah.
just
So
you sit on your
so
phone the whole time, watch the show, maybe.
so you're plane tickets, and if your segment's cut, you're in catering. They may do photos, they may do video game scans, you may do promotional, you may do radio. You're not necessarily doing absolutely nothing most of the time, but just because you're not actively wrestling doesn't mean you're not doing something. So to answer that question, there's many times where guys just show up and sit in catering, or in WCW's history, you get paid to sit at home and do nothing.
Yeah, they did do that a lot. And that's nothing to be proud about. But
Right?
yes, many wrestlers for WCW got paid loads of money to sit at home. And if that ain't the American dream, I don't know what is.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think that there's obviously some things that AEW has to work through and figure out. We talked about a ton tonight. AEW Dynamite, Collision, Abaddon, Kenny Omega, Will Osprey, Zack Sabre Jr., Bryan Danielson, many different things, injuries on the roster, and some thoughts going into the rest of the year with Wrestle Kingdom and Okada, Claudio,
Morgan.
tons of stuff.
Warden. Kevin.
Kevin's
muted
on
now.
Kevin's on mute now somehow.
Sorry, I was
Right.
swearing because you weren't cutting to me.
Go ahead.
Here's a little podcast extra with a little overtime. Morgan, what did you think of the Kenny Omega match, and do you still think he's at the top of his game?
I don't think that he is at the top of his game. Like you said, I do feel like it took him a few minutes to get going. He messed up the kip up, that MJF didn't. And obviously Kenny Omega's in great shape, but that's a hard thing to do. It seems very easy. They make it look easy on TV, but a kip up is very hard to do. You have to be in really good shape. You have to be able to kind of like, your back has to be very limber. And, Kenny is obviously 42, 40. So
40, just turned 40 last week.
So he is, right. That's right. Danielson's 42. So, I mean, I don't expect the same from him, but I still feel like he's a main eventer. I still feel like he's worth having the belt. But it kind of goes back to something you've been kind of educating me on, is there are some wrestlers out there that can sell tickets, can sell merchandise, can move storylines along, and they don't have to have a belt. And Kenny Omega's that guy right now. Actually, honestly, Kenny Omega can be the guy who loses a lot and doesn't even become a jobber or anything like that. He's still He's still a very, very relevant, even though he's not even winning.
Wait a minute. So that's 180 degrees away from what you said 2
That's what I'm
episodes
saying,
ago,
like-
where you were like, he's a top guy. He shouldn't be putting these young kids over. And now you're telling me he's the guy that should lose all the time?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was in the background going, whoa, 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 whoa.
At least he's putting over MJF than somebody he shouldn't be wrestling at all, like Fletcher, who's his name, Mahulahan.
Just say you don't like Kyle Fletcher, you fucking casual.
So I'll wrap up with this because I know we're running over here. But did you guys think that the conversation between the two of them after the cameras went off was somewhat scripted?
Somewhat, I think so, but like more or less, I think they're still trying to tell us something with it. And I think some of that was definitely from the heart.
Why do you think Kenny asked MJF to help him up? He couldn't stand.
It's the same reason he can't do the kip up, because he's 40 years old and he's had a ton of work done on his back.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I'm trying to dissect it. I guess it's the adrenaline rush. You know, when you're in the moment, you don't feel the pain. But now they had been sitting down in that kneeling position. He was in the crouch position in the ropes. He had been sitting down for, let's say, a minute and a half, 2 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes while MJF cut his promo. And MJF was breathing pretty heavy. So you know those guys went hard. But I found it very interesting that he asked MJF to help him stand, which I thought was, it's almost like they're dropping us little hints. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Hey, it's the elite. That's what they do. So there probably is something to it when you make me think about it like that.
All in all, though, very good week of wrestling. I enjoyed both shows. It had its pluses, it had its minuses. Looking forward to Wednesday night, another stacked card. I think we're in Kentucky, Louisville, I believe. Hot wrestling town, always has been, always will be. So looking forward to it. But boys, thanks again for a great show. Had a great night.
Okay, Morgan, now you can wrap us out.
Are you sure? Do I have the time now? Am I available? Am I eligible to do that now? That's the question.
Just watch the other screen here.
The Oracle says, bring it home, Wargman.
Well, yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of And Still a Wrestling Podcast. A lot of fun discussion and looking forward to what holds the rest of the season, what rest of the year, really, for 2023 with AEW. And we will catch you on the next And Still a Wrestling Podcast.